All right, our next lesson is on slope-intercept form. So think back to when we talked about proportionality. You could find the k value of this graph and then write an equation in y equals kx form. So remember we used to go through and we would actually pick a point on the graph that we could read easily. So for example, this point is 2, 15. We know it's proportional because it's a straight line and it starts at 0, 0. So to find k, we would do y divided by x. Prior to this, you guys would actually write this down as a decimal. Let's just leave it as an improper fraction right now, and you can write the equation y equals 15 over 2 x. You were able to do that before. In this chapter, though, we've talked about how graphs can be not proportional, but they can actually be linear relationships. So that is, we looked at the slope already. That was our constant rate of change. So these graphs also have an equation that describes them. So what we need to do is take a look at the graph and find the slope first. So if I look, here's 2 points that I can use. My rise is 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's up, so it's positive. 2 goes to the right is my run, so that's a positive 2. So my slope is 4 over 2, which is really just 2. So next thing I want to do is find the y-intercept. So if you take a look at your line, I want you to go down through. Right here is where it crosses the x-axis. So we actually call that an x-intercept. If we keep going down until the line crosses the y-axis, that happens right here. Right here. And at that point, that's the point 0, negative 3. So my y-intercept is actually just negative 3. So what I can do is using this slope-intercept form equation, I can actually just plug in 2 numbers into my equation, and I already have an equation ready to go. So y equals mx plus b. M, we already know, stands for the slope. B is taking the place of the y-intercept now. So since it says plus b, depending on what the value of b is, it's either going to be plus or a minus b, depending on what we get. So in our case, y equals 2x, and then we have a minus 3 for our y-intercept. So before, you were only able to find the equation of lines like this, and now that we've shifted it, notice that that rate of change is still just our m, our slope, and now since we shifted it down 3, we have to put a minus 3. That tells us that we moved it down. If we had a plus 3, that would have told us that it would have gone through up here. We would have shifted it 3 up. Back with these graphs, our y-intercept was 0, so we would have just had y equals 15 halves x plus 0. We know from math that we don't actually have to write the plus 0, so that's why we didn't do it before. That's what this makes sense with. So taking a look at these two, these are just basic equations. What's the slope? What's the y-intercept? So in this case, the 2/3 x is my slope, so I'm just going to call that the m. And the b stands for my y-intercept. Here's my b right here. It's actually a negative 4. In this one, my slope is attached to the x. It's a negative 5. And the b value is the constant, the plain number, so it's a positive 3. And you don't even have to write that positive. Don't know why I did that. Write an equation of a line in slope-intercept form with a slope of negative 3, so that's my m, and a y-intercept of negative 4, that's my b. So y equals m goes with x, the slope goes with x, and I have a negative 4, so I just put a minus 4. Notice that I would not write this as plus a negative 4. We never want to have 2 signs. No, 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 no. Never have 2 signs here. Take a look at this graph. We need to find 2 things. We need our m and we need our b. So I have a point here and I have a point here. My rise is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And my run is 3, both positive. So my slope is 5 over 3. That's already simplified. Nothing I can do. Leave it improper. My y-intercept is, notice it's below the 0, so it's actually a negative 2. So my equation is y equals 5/3 x minus 2. Last one here. A taxi fare y can be determined by the equation y equals 2x plus 4, where x is the miles traveled. Graph the equation. So this right here is my slope. So for my slope, it's 2, which really means 2 over 1. and my y-intercept is positive 4. So go ahead and plot the y-intercept first at positive 4. Using the slope, go from that point, and we want to go up 2 and to the right 1. Up 2 and to the right 1. And we can keep doing that. We're going to go off our graph, so we can leave that there. So what does the slope mean? So the slope is 2, and this is your taxi fare y. So x is the number of miles traveled. So 2 times the number of miles traveled. The slope is really talking about the price per mile, which in this case happens to be $2 per mile. The y-intercept, it starts off at $4. So basically what that's telling me is that my taxi fare, it doesn't matter how many miles I drive, but as soon as I pop into that taxi, I already owe the driver $4. So the y-intercept, we can say, is kind of like a base fee of $4. So it's basically just $4 for you to sit down in the taxi.